Michigan State hires Pat Fitzgerald as their next head coach. Only 24 hours, 25, 26, 27, really just a little over a day after firing Jonathan Smith. And it was announced quickly by the Free Press, the Detroit Free Press, and other sources from CBS a few hours or an hour after the firing of Smith that Fitzgerald was the front runner for the job and would be hired. The contract was just inked out today. I love this hire by Michigan State. Now, I know I said this about Jonathan Smith, and that turned out very poorly, but I don't think that Smith had the backing of donors and of the institution that Pat Fitzgerald will have. It's rumored that Pat Fitzgerald is coming with a $400 million endowment to the athletic department, which I assume would be exclusively used for football, or mostly used for football. That is some serious money, and we know that Michigan State, with most Big Ten schools, has major donors, but especially for Michigan State, these donors are very active in athletics and care. They were active with Tucker, kind of receded with Smith. It seems like they might be back in the fold. Just might. And if that's the case, I love this hire. If not, I still think they're more engaged than they were under Smith, and I think that Fitzgerald will get better results than Smith and better results than he did at Northwestern, where he had plenty of restrictions. Let me go through why I think this is a great hire. So most importantly, Fitzgerald did more with less. That is a hallmark of being a successful coach at Michigan State. Northwestern is the Vanderbilt of the Big Ten. Michigan State is the not Arkansas, not South Carolina, not Kentucky. What are they? No, the SEC functions differently, but just like kind of maybe the Auburn of the Big Ten. Would that work? The Auburn of the Big Ten, maybe the Tennessee of the Big Ten. Probably not Tennessee given its history, but like they're the Auburn of the Big Ten. They're a mid-range but upper mid-range program within their conference that has history, that is a right to have high expectations, that is a top 25 program in college football, and that earns a lot of revenue and has a rabid, engaged fan base. Not a perfect analogy, but just trying to go along with the SEC Big Ten comparison there. So he's going to have more resources, an easier avenue to recruit, to use the transfer portal, fewer restrictions. His fan base and boosters and donors and potential boosters and donors will care more about football and will more likely be engaged than those same types of people were when he was at Northwestern. That is the most important thing. D'Antonio did more with less. Perlis at his peak did more with less. Saban at Michigan State, they began to get recruiting going, but at the start, he had to do more with less. He inherited a pretty rough situation. So that is fantastic. Another part is he's a great culture guy. He was vindicated from that whole hazing thing at Northwestern, and his whole shtick, vibe, his aura, his message, whatever you call it, is blue collar, tough nose, defense, trench play. That's what Pat Fitzgerald is. The defense first, hard nose, tackle, fundamental soundness, special teams, being an all-American historic linebacker at Northwestern on that team that went to the Rose Bowl, being the winningest coach in Northwestern history and bringing them to 2 Big Ten championship games with defense and a okay enough offense to complement the defense, play complementary football. I love this. Really, this is fitting everything MSU not just has been, but also wants. I have talked about before that the donors from Michigan State are pretty weird. This channel will make you a college football expert and help you enjoy watching games and make more accurate predictions. So what are you waiting for? Like, subscribe, ring the notification bell, comment your thoughts, and watch the video all the way through so that you can get the full package, and check the description and pinned comment for more ways to help yourself and this channel. And they want this certain archetype, and I personally think the archetype is absolutely insane and ridiculous. But Fitzgerald is one of those options where he fits the archetype, but he's not an idiot. He's not ridiculous. He's not a meathead. He might look like one. The guy's built, played linebacker, and preaches blue collar work ethic, be tough. But there's a reason he was able to win the amount of games he did, pull some of the upsets he did, have some 10-win seasons. He's a sharp guy. He's as sharp as a tack. And it sounds like he's learned and even admitted that he hasn't handled everything perfectly. He doesn't seem like a high ego type guy. And that's something that Michigan State does not need. Mel Tucker on paper fit all of these other things, checked these boxes. But he had an ego and was selfish and had a lot of very bad off the field conduct. It does not sound like Fitzgerald has that after the report from the whole, hazing scandal and the lawsuit that followed from Fitzgerald, where he won a lot of money and they settled. Clearly, there was some overreach and definitely an overreaction from those reports about that unfortunate hazing that went down at Northwestern. I am going to give him benefit of the doubt that he's learned. I give a lot of these coaches benefit of the doubt with off-field stuff unless we know for a fact there are issues there. And I think that with the portal, with recruiting, with making good hires, I would imagine he gets that, especially with athletic director Jay Batt making the hire and vetting this, and not, say, Alan Haller. The final point to make is that he's the Big Ten's Jonathan Smith, I think. He has more the personality fit with MSU than Smith did, but from a perspective of doing more with less and having a slow ramp up. Fitzgerald, I think it took 3 years for them to really have success at Northwestern when he took over after Randy Walker tragically passed away. Had to pull that one out of the back of my brain. Randy Walker, rest in peace to him. And for Smith, we'll never know. But the first 2 years were pretty much a disaster. The team quit against UCLA. It wasn't a good look. They really needed to win 6 or 7 games this year to keep Smith, and they could have in an alternate universe. They didn't, so it was appropriate to make the move. He is the Big Ten Smith with more personality, a better connection to Michigan State's athletic department and the people who found it and support it due to factors we've already talked about. Really, he reminds me of Jonathan Smith if he had more of a Big Ten background and was more well-known within the conference and by the fan base and respected. Keep in mind, Fitzgerald played Michigan State and D'Antonio and even Tucker a ton and beat Michigan State repetitively despite usually having far inferior talent and not being favored or picked to win those games. So Michigan State's very familiar with Pat Fitzgerald, and everyone in the Big Ten pretty much is familiar with Pat Fitzgerald in a way that, despite the fact that Smith did a very good job building up Oregon State, which also, is overshadowed by Oregon, does not have a lot of resources, etc. It's just Pac-12 guy, playing a lot of Pac-12 games, Pac-12 after dark. The hire was kind of sudden, and him trying to exit out of Oregon State being left out of a conference, just not the same familiarity, not the same excitement. Fitzgerald is going to be given, I think, a longer leash, but also more resources to operate with. So I wouldn't be shocked if, despite having a longer leash and more patience being built into the rebuild, the contract, the expectations, I wouldn't be shocked if he had a faster start and reached a bowl game in his first year with Michigan State. Thank you for watching. It's my mission on College Football with Sam to make you the most informed, knowledgeable, and entertained fan as possible. We aren't perfect, but we hit the nail on the head more often than we hit our thumb with the hammer. Make sure to like, subscribe, ring the notification bell, comment, and if you're here, you've probably already watched the whole video. So thank you for doing those things.